Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. What's happening, everybody? Todd Crandell from Ignite Euphoria with another awesome podcast. Today, I have one Jessica Golitska.
Yeah.
But we were thinking about changing your name to Stevenson.
Let me know how that goes.
Okay, so I know you were asking me like, well, what are the questions and all this stuff? So I'll give you a hint. Here's the theme. And the theme of this is going to be, how does it feel to be in that seat? And then I'm going to ask you a lot of different scenarios of how you got in that seat. So The first one is, how do you feel sitting in that seat right now?
I feel accomplished, actually. It's taken a lot of hard work, mentally, physically, and emotionally to get to this seat today. And I actually remember when I first got here, watching other podcasts of other people that have successfully completed the program, example, Eric, and thinking that one day that I'd like to be able to have the opportunity to tell my story too.
Good answer. Really good answer. So let's start with this then. We're going to do current first.
Okay.
You mentioned accomplished. Great answer. And then you mentioned physically, spiritually, emotionally, which goes into our balanced, holistic lifestyle, right? So what are you currently doing that's made you feel accomplished on those levels?
Well, keeping a daily routine, a very consistent daily routine, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, taking a wonderful group of people to CrossFit every morning, working out, then being able to come in here and spend my day helping other people feel accomplished, being able to navigate through their sobriety and help them get on their feet and be able to maintain sobriety outside of here. I definitely try to eat well, that helps me with mind, body, and stay in balance too, and obviously with the physical stuff, and my spiritual side is a little bit different. It's out of the norm for sure, but I try to maintain kindness. That's part of my spirituality, and I try to just kind of like to love and accept everybody for who they are, and that's part of what I call my spirituality. It's not a God thing for me.
Let's talk about this. What is that then? What is your spiritual piece? And I don't want you to get nervous about this because I've said this a million times on these podcasts. I'm not godly versed. Mm-hmm. I believe in the chief, good dude. Can't wait to ask him a lot of questions at some point, but I don't have that confidence in that field. I don't have the experience, the knowledge, or anything. So when you said you're very spiritual, that is one thing that we hear around here a lot. Mm-hmm. What is that like for you, and what is it that you do in that?
So I don't believe in God. That's part of that was part of when I came here. At some point, it was about maybe a month or two in, I kind of stripped myself of a lot of the knowledge that I've been fed and conditioned with, and religion was one of them. And it's not that I grew up religious by any means. It was just kind of some stuff that I picked up or was instilled in me, or for whatever way, shape, or form it happened. But and part of that was, I used to pray and pray and pray for things to change in my life or for situations to be different. And coming here and having a clear mind and redirecting my focus on what was important in life, I started figuring out praying for something was not getting me, it wasn't coming to me that way. I had to put in the footwork myself. So having kind of that realization, I came to the conclusion that God isn't some being outside of me, it's in me, it's within me. So anything that I ever prayed for, if I got it, I was the one that put in the work for it. I was the one that took the initiative and took the steps to do what I needed to do to get whatever that was that I needed to accomplish.
That's powerful. And this is not going in the direction I thought it would right off the bat, which makes it even more fun. Okay. So back to the theme of how did you get in that seat? How did you get into that seat with respect to self-harming with drugs and alcohol? What's the emotional, intellectual, maybe some of that godly stuff that led you to choose drugs and alcohol? How did you get into that seat as a former substance user?
So you're asking me basically why I started using? Is that what
We can do
you're
that.
asking?
Or just, like, how did you end up in that seat I don't like using the word client, but how did you come to us? Like, what is the story behind you arriving at Racing for Recovery?
I'm going to make it short and sweet, I guess, because it could be a very long story. I've struggled with self-esteem issues since I was a young child. I mean, as far back as I can remember, kindergarten kind of age, 5, 6 years old kind of age. So when I got introduced, so to speak, to alcohol and drugs in my early teen stage, I found that I had confidence in myself. I was more outgoing. So like it became something that it was my go-to in order to feel a part of or in the in crowd or being accepted or being able to what I thought was being myself. But inevitably it wasn't being myself. I was under the influence of something that was, creating who I was at that moment. Needless to say, getting into that stuff led me into the wrong crowd of people. I found myself in relationships that were extremely toxic. They were very abusive, mentally, physically, sexually, financially abusive. Got married at a young age, had a couple kids at a very young age, right out of high school. Those relationships, obviously, I fell deeper into addiction, drinking and taking pills and, that kind of stuff. I don't like naming things. And then I rolled right into another relationship that ended up being married again. And that was even more toxic in every way, shape, and form too. Stay-at-home mom kind of type thing, and just fell deeper into addiction. And then when that relationship ended, I really took a dive off, because that's when that relationship ended, I lost everything to that divorce. My home, I had to send my kids away because I had 4 children by that time, being a single mom with 4 kids, and the state of depression that I was in. And I just didn't think there was any more hope anymore. So that's when I really fell into using the really dark, heavy drugs, as I call them. And that obviously led me to a worse kind of crowd of people to be involved with. And I spent about 6 years, maybe a little bit more, in what I called my rabbit hole, and was living horrible, dark days, doing everything you can possibly think of under the sun to get my fix for the day or to feel better for the day, running streets, homeless, selling myself, stealing, borrowing, stealing, all that great stuff that comes with that. And I got to a point, it was a couple days before my 37th birthday. I woke up one morning in my dealer's home is where I was staying at the time. So getting my fix for that day wasn't an issue. It was just, I woke up and I was just tired. I was completely sick and tired of where my life had led me to. It was just like I had this weird realization that like the cars going by in the street outside that I was hearing, or the people that were in the park across the street, like I would have given anything just to have their life at that moment. Like it didn't matter what their life consisted of, it was going to be better than what I was doing at that time. So it was either I was planning on ending my life or I was changing my life. Like I had to really sit and decipher what my decision, what I was going to do that day. And I made a call to the local detox center and set up an appointment with them. And the next day, they didn't actually take me, actually. They ended up not taking me because I didn't have insurance. So I checked myself into our local hospital, to the psych unit, because I was suicidal for sure at that point. They didn't want to take me because they knew what I was supposed to be doing and where I was supposed to be going, and they're like, "You're just trying to use us." I'm like, "No, I'm going to tell you right now. If I walk out of these doors, if you let me leave, it's going to end for me altogether." So,
I'd never heard that last piece before of your story. You mentioned right off the bat, you said low self-esteem led to all those choices that led to more heartache and all that. I have two questions in this. First of all, and it's an easy one. Do you think if you had self-esteem, this wouldn't have even started?
It's possible.
Okay. Do you really, and you don't have to talk in great detail about this, but can you maybe let people who are watching this know what led to having a low self-esteem?
I'm really not sure, like, where it came from. I don't know if it was just like my brain being wired different. You know, like I don't know, because I was at such a young age, I found myself comparing my image to other girls, you know, even my little sister, you know, like she was 18 months younger than me. She was the baby of the family. I mean, I think that, and she was this little tiny petite thing, and I felt built a little bit bigger and thicker, and I don't know, like that, and that's what I remember. That's, you know, what my memories of being that age, and like seeing some of the other little girls at school, like comparing my hair to theirs, or, you know, my clothes to theirs, or, you know what I mean? Like I remember doing that, like as far back as I can remember, you know? So, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I just never felt a part of, like, I always felt like I was the third wheel, or I was part of a friendship, but I was this one on the outside, not quite fully engaged all the time. So, and like I said, when I drank, I became the life of the party, you know, and getting into, you know, smoking weed, and then I became the supplier of it. So then I was needed and people wanted me around, and you know what I mean? So that's where it kind of changed for me. And when I seen that shift, that's what I wanted. That's what I was able to fill that hole at that time.
What do you think the first example of building self-esteem was for you? I'll give you a hint. You kind of already said it, but I just want you to re-say it.
I don't
yourself.
like when you do that. I'll give you a hint. You already said it. I'm like, wait, what did I say?
Well, think of that. Like, because at Racing for Recovery, and as clinicians that I'm fortunate enough to work with here, and there's 18 of us now, the foundation of people that choose drugs and alcohol, as you said, is no self-esteem. So if then that logically would mean that the foundation of building sobriety would be having self-esteem. So what do you think was your first act of starting to build the self-esteem that you have created today?
Okay. Well, there's two answers for that for me. There's the first thought that got it started for me, and then the first act. The first change in mindset and my thought process was when I came here, and you guys had told us that using drugs was a choice, because obviously I had became very dependent on it and was instilled for many years going in and out of other rooms that this is something, it was a disease, and this was something that I was going to live with. And so I always thought that this was something I was going to have to live with. I was cursed with for the rest of my life. But when I came here, I was taught that this was a choice and I don't ever have to use again. That was such an empowering moment for me. And knowing that I can take my life back. I have the power to make that choice. That was a huge turning point for me, first of all. And then secondly, when I started getting my body moving and getting involved with just like physical activities, like doing the Pilates with Skylar, which that was a little bit further into my sobriety. But when I started doing that, I felt phenomenal, which that in turn sparked me changing the way that I ate, because why would I want to eat like crap if I'm trying to change my body and feel better with working out? Eating has to accent that to me, for me. So then I started changing that. Well, when I eat a good meal and a healthy meal, I feel good about myself. So, and when I feel good about myself, there goes my self-esteem, so.
Awesome. Are you reading like script notes off of this? Because you're like the poster child of everything
Shut
we
up.
do.
That's why I'm sitting here.
Right. Well, and this is all going into what I want to talk with you about today. So I do want to do this. You had mentioned going to other places and they talk about, well, I have a disease. And you said, I thought I was cursed with this for life. Mm-hmm. What was that mindset like when you're basically feeling, I have this incurable disease and I'm cursed for life? Was there any hope that it would change?
Oh, there was none. Like, it was so easy when something bad happened in my life to revert right back to using again. Like, I always had these little stints of like, being, I can't even say I was clean, because I was always still doing something else, but like I wasn't using heavy drugs. Like, but I always had that excuse, like, oh, well, this is a part of it. This is the way society views it. So it's okay if I keep falling down, as long as I get back up. But then at the end of the day, like, this is what my new normal is going to be. Like, this is what my normal is going to be, like, so how many times am I going to have to fall down and get back up? And you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, this is what my life cycle is about to be. So yeah, basically I'm cursed with this Groundhog Day of addiction.
And that's supposed to be the definition of sobriety.
Yeah, no.
And here's where, and when I am going to use the R word when people say, well, relapse is part of recovery. So I haven't met your parents, but when I hear that relapse is a part of recovery and knowing how many times you went back, chose to go back and do this stuff, if I told your parents and you coming into treatment that, oh yeah, this is all part of it, and what happens, God forbid, if you died from that? And then your parents call me and say, you told our family that relapse was a part of recovery and our daughter is dead now. There is no way that's going to be on my shoulders, our program. No way. And that's why we believe in the cognizant choice of being made in this, which obviously that's what turned it around for you.
Absolutely.
So anything else you want to talk about with the negative stuff of addiction? I think you got it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I keep going back to how you introed yourself and feeling accomplished. Talk about your mindset then when you come into Racing for Recovery. You did mention the power of choice. Give people an understanding of really what it was like in those early days to come into something different.
So coming here, my initial phone call with Dan when I called him from the hospital while I was detoxing, I've always taken interest in taking care of my body. I've always had interest in being mindful and spiritual and meditation and yoga, and just like overall, like just being happy. You know what I mean? And like, and when Dan described what you guys did and being balanced, holistic, all that great stuff, sparked my interest. I'm like, that's me. This is where I need to go. Like, this is the first time I've ever heard of anything like this. I've got to try this. So then when I got here and, being in this building and just like the energy that there was, like, I say that this building vibrates positive energy, and seeing the people having smiles on their faces and laughing and having a good time. It's like, that's what I want. I didn't know what it was like to belly laugh at that point. Like, I didn't have a genuine smile in years before I came in here. And seeing other people doing it, it was just like, this is where I need to be. I just knew that this is where I needed to be, and this is where I was going to find it. And I came in here and I sat down in these rooms and I listened because I wanted to learn how they got to feeling how they feel today. Because I wouldn't have guessed. Some of the people, I would have never guessed that they actually were in addiction, that they had used drugs and stuff. Some people, like, I'm like, there's no way. So like for me to be able to sit here today and I can reflect that to others now that are coming in here, like it's a sense of accomplishment for me.
This is awesome. In our Cleveland book, we talk about creating a new normal. And you mentioned this before where you made I call them feeble attempts at getting off of that stuff, right? Where you're like, well, this must be what my new normal is going to be. I'm cursed with this. And it's like, that's not the new normal we're talking about.
No.
It's transitioning from the normalcy of what our choices have led us to with respect to being addicted and understanding how that occurred and then creating a new normal that brings everything you talk about. And by the way, I hope you laugh at some point because that cackle is hilarious.
I'm sure
I know
it'll
I can
come
hear
out.
you when Bailey was talking about it earlier. Yeah. But that's authentic, that genuine belly laugh. That's the stuff that is good around here. So, all right. Now this is going the way I wanted it to. There's two things in this, Jess, because they were such critical moments as me watching your awesome growth in this. Where do you think, even though you were sober at Racing for Recovery and things were improving, what is like the one area that you fell into of like, this is what I'm supposed to do and I need to go do this, that then you changed? What was that?
Going back to work.
I want you to talk about that.
Okay. So, obviously, like, I got to a point where I was comfortable in what I was doing because I was working out, I was eating good. I was vegetarian at the time, and I always loved fruits and vegetables, so that was a thing. Whatever. And I was going to all my groups, and I was, involved with things that were going on around here, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm in a good place right now. My mind was in a good place. My head was in a good place. I want to get back to work. It's time to start getting back on my feet. I have kids. And inevitably I have a life outside of here that I'm gonna have to financially take care of also, and it's just part of integrating back into society. It was important to me. So I went back to work, which my field of work was factory work. So I got a job Dan helped me get a job at a factory where he knew a guy that had went through recovery also, and he liked to hire people that were in recovery to help, and it was to help them get on their feet. So it was a good atmosphere as far as the people I was surrounded with, because a lot of the people that I worked with even were recovering addicts and had some pretty good time under their belt even too. So like initially it was such a good thing. But as weeks progressed and months progressed and the monotony of working in a factory, and like literally, like, no offense, but I worked in a place where they built casket liners. And like, it was kind of like, I'm seeing this and I'm like, so am I going to do this every day for the rest of my life? And one of those are going to be for me. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is my starting point and that's my end point. I'm not doing this. I'm not a machine. I'm not a robot. There was just no love in what I was doing. I didn't love going there. I got to the point where I dreaded waking up every morning to go there. My exercise changed. It was basically none. My eating habits were total. I don't want to say bad words, but they were crap. I was eating out of a vending machine every day, working 12-hour days. My sleep was horrible. So next thing you know, like my state of mind went straight downhill.
How long were you sober at this time?
When I went back to work, I was like 3 months maybe.
Okay.
And I worked there for just under 6 months. So it was about 8 months-ish that I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, something's got to give. Like, I had even hit a thought one night, like some bad stuff was going on in my life. I had lost my uncle. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was the holidays, which is, the month of December has got so many bad memories for me with on so many different levels, besides the fact that I couldn't be with all of my kids. I got to be with my older kids, but I couldn't be with my younger kids at the time. Like, there was just a lot of stuff going on, and like, literally I contemplated using again. And I knew that that's not where I couldn't go back there. Like, I had made it so far for me to start having these thoughts of giving up. It couldn't happen. So once again, something had to change for me.
So I love this. Again, in our There's More Than One Way to Get to Cleveland book, we talk about the 4 big ideas. We're named one of our treatment rooms with that. The first one, obviously, is anybody can get off of drugs and alcohol, right?
For sure.
Big idea number 2, you can achieve anything in sobriety. Our slogan, with sobriety, anything is possible. Mm-hmm. This is where, number 3, where we're not immune to life's hardships. Now, I'm going back to the other modalities in this. How many times do you hear people say, such and such happened? My mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, my uncle died, whatever, I relapsed. This is exactly what I'm talking about, why Racing for Recovery is, I'm going to say it, it's a more effective approach to this, because just because those things happen, they do not automatically mean I have to choose drugs to cope with them.
Yep.
And that's number 4. I get hit with a life's hardship. What choice am I going to make to sustain what I have and cope with this effectively? When people are talking about using effective coping skills, I'm like, well, this is where you need to apply them.
Absolutely.
So here, I'm getting back to the self-esteem thing here too. Where do you think that self-esteem kicked in again? And can you describe that scenario of when we were talking? I gave you a hint there, by the way.
I know you did. Well, here's the thing. Like, I knew what was working for me before I started that job.
Yep.
So by me applying all of what was offered to me and what was suggested with, moving my body and eating right and getting my mind right and being a part of, I lost all that with working that job and the hours I was working in, and that, my mind changed. So I knew what I needed to get back to doing, but like, you and I sat down at one of our breakfasts, and like, I knew what I needed to do, but I was very unsure of myself. And having that conversation with you, like, you just told me, you were like, what are you going to do? Basically was what it was. It was like, what are you going to do about it? Like, and I sat and I pondered that question for a minute. I'm like, I'm quitting this job. I knew financially it was not a great idea for me, in so many different ways. And especially at that point in my recovery, because I felt like I was getting to a point where I needed to be financially stable so I can move on and move forward. In life, with my kids and my family and whatnot, there was still a lot of financial obligations that I had to take care of. But I needed to take care of my mind first, because if I'm having those thoughts again and I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, even physically, I had to go back to what I was doing.
I truly hope that people are really paying attention to what you're saying right now. And this, we definitely will be going longer than our normal thing with this, because I have so much I want to talk to you about. So I'll do this first. Do you think, had you not utilized Racing for Recovery for the first 3 months and went back to that job, that you'd still be sober today?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Good answer.
I can say that confidently. I know that if I wouldn't have been working this program before I started that job, I would have went right, no doubt in my mind, I probably would have went right back into it.
I agree. And again, this is what I truly believe, and I did it in my own recovery, and I believe the same thing. I have to be doing things. Just stopping the drug addiction is not the answer. It is a catalyst to get to the answers, but it's not the answer. And so many people, even their families, well, Johnny did 30 days in rehab. He needs to get back to work. And I'm like, for what? Where's he going?
Right.
What is he going to do?
Right.
And here's another piece of this that I find interesting. I didn't really, that was the first conversation I had with you on that breakfast. And that was 6 months of you being here, right?
8.
Wow. Because, by the way, how long have you been sober now?
19 months.
That's awesome. So think of that. 8 months, and I really didn't even know you. And I feel badly about some of that, but then on the other side of it is, well, it's because of what was going on and what stopped going on that I didn't have the pleasure of knowing you the way I know now. So here's another question in this, and it's going to be a difficult one for you. But I know losing Tommy was a big deal to you. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. I had the same conversation with him. I remember where I was standing when he talked about going back to work. And I said the same thing I say to everybody, blah, blah, blah. I asked these questions. Do you think that if he didn't go back to work that soon, I possibly could be talking to him right now?
I think it was a very good chance. I know he struggled with a lot of mental health issues, but if he wouldn't have went back to work, maybe he would have worked on that a lot more. So the possibility of him still being here, for sure.
How are you now utilizing that unfortunate tragedy? Let's just call it for what it is. How are you using that as a positive, productive thing for your own wellness?
Well, part of where our relationship, and I only have to go back to this for a second to make my point. Part of how our relationship started, he was trying to save me. Yeah. When we first got together, he was saving me from a super abusive relationship, a super abusive situation that had happened, physically abusive situation that had happened. He had saved me from that, and which became this that was kind of like his role in my life, and him getting me here, making sure, and it wasn't getting me here, it was making sure I stayed here. Mm. He stayed long enough to know that I had fallen enough into this that he could leave me and go do his thing and get back to work. There's some other realizations that I've had along the way of why he left too. Working was one of it, but it was to supply his habit. Yeah. He wanted to go back out and use, unfortunately. And so anyways, so I feel like his passing, his overdose, I would be shitting on him, sorry, if I would go back and use. I live for him today, as far as because he can't, because he wasn't able to. So I use his story to live and to help others, because the more that I've learned here and in the education that I've gotten since I've been here, the mental health stuff that I'm learning, I'm understanding more why that happened to him and how it happened. And I just had a realization the other day in one of our meetings that we just had, with something that he used to use an excuse as to why he used. He may have had an extreme mental health issue that was never addressed. And I think back, what if he would have stayed long enough to figure that out? So I kind of had a rough day with that the other day. And there's different little things that pop up. I see him and people here. And so I take pride in being able to help others hopefully not want to go back and end up that way.
I only knew him briefly, but I call it the distinct conversations I had with him. I knew there was something else going on there, and it honestly, it was why he was choosing certain drugs, because they kind of go hand in hand in this. So I've never asked this question to somebody before. Did you have, or do you sometimes, do you have any survivor's guilt that you made it and, quote, he didn't? Or do you look at that still with a ton of gratitude that he delivered you here and gave you an opportunity to save yourself?
I have both. I definitely have both. Like, I definitely have a huge amount of gratitude. I know where his heart was at.
Yeah.
I had a video chat with him 12 days before he died. And I don't want to get into all of that because that's a whole different conversation. But he in that conversation he told me how proud of me he was, and that I made it. In his eyes, I made it. And that's out of addiction. I made it. I'm not. There was no doubt in his mind that I would go back. So there's that, and then there is guilt because like what if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? Maybe because our relationship was so on and off after he left. Like, that was something that I struggled with almost daily from the time that he left till the time of his death. So, like, along with all this other life's hardships that were going on, this was an on and off relationship, and struggling with him using and him ghosting and me calling hospitals and jails to see if he was okay because I hadn't heard from him in days or a week. So there's always I always feel a little bit of guilt sometimes for that. And I maybe one day I can let go of that, but right now it's just a part of the grieving process, I feel like, still with him.
So let's talk about some more awesome stuff that you now are doing that's related to the questions I just asked you. You are a licensed CDCA.
Yes.
And you now, I don't like saying it, you're an employee of Racing for Recovery, but you get paid to work, do things here.
I get paid to be here.
Correct.
So.
Right. Which is awesome. In that, are you, because this is a process of everybody that comes into this field, is you learn very quickly how to, I call it self-preserve. So are you now starting to really understand more of, like, we do our best to guide, educate, support, come take this route, take this route, take this route. Mm-hmm. This is why we do this, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with Tommy, that now you can look at it and go, I tried, I did everything I could,
yeah.
And then be able to still maintain that. Yes, this hurts. I know what I'm doing. Unfortunately, certain choices were made, and I'm going to keep going. Can you talk about what that learning process has been like for you to deal with many other people in that same boat?
In coming here, I definitely have a newfound respect for what you guys do behind the scenes, is what I call it. And I completely understand why this place works the way it does. And rephrase that for me, because I feel like I could go a couple different ways with this.
Well, it's more of like, so you received services here for a long time.
Yes.
You worked your butt off to actually be able to be on our team of
Mm-hmm.
working here, right? So the question really is, how has that transition enabled you to improve from healing from trauma,
Mm-hmm.
let's call it, and also maintaining a sense of self as you continue to move forward, constantly working in this? So it's like, how do you effectively cope with maintaining wellness and still seeing people who don't 100% choose that wellness?
Okay. So for me, maintaining my mental health, rewind just a tad. COVID this time last year, shutting everything down, gave me the opportunity to really dissect my mind. So I spent a lot of time alone and journaling and self-reflection and figuring out how my mind works and why it works the way it does. Because I understand my thought process and the way that my emotions work and how I react to them, and how to, I want to say control them, but it's hard to say control them because it's hard to control your emotions. It's controlling the action that comes with the emotions. Mm-hmm. So because I spent so much time getting my mind right while we had that downtime, taking advantage of that, and staying consistent with what I did in my everyday life, staying consistent with moving my body. And I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say it, but it's so important to me because I've been down a few days with not being able to work out with my sciatic nerve and old injury, and it messes with me. not being able to keep that routine for a couple of days. And I cannot wait till I can go right back at it, which starting back up tomorrow with yoga, but Monday back into CrossFit. Anyways, so being able to stay consistent, and understanding my feelings, and knowing and learning about the grieving process, learning to just deal, this is life, period, point blank. Stuff's going to happen. People are going to die. Relationships are going to end. Things are going to happen, so it's just what am I going to do with it? Am I going to sit and sulk in it? Am I going to use over it? No. Sometimes I might have to sit with it for a little while and feel it, but then I got to get up, dust myself off, and move on and keep doing what I'm doing. Does it come back? Yes. Do I have bad days? Of course I do. I shouldn't say bad days. I have bad moments. I don't have bad days anymore. I don't wake up and fuck this day. Sorry.
Sorry.
But I don't wake up feeling like that anymore. I wake up and it's a good day. Things are going to happen. I understand. And it's just how I deal with them. So now with being able to see other people going through this, I try to use my experiences and help them see that it's not the end of the world. Sometimes little things feel like big things because we're not used to dealing with a lot of these little things sometimes. Or, it's kind of like that mentality, if I can do it, you can do it kind of type thing. And I feel like I just see a reflection of me and the people in here. So I try to be a good example, and I try to be able to use my story to help them with what they're going through. Because I feel like when I came in here, knowing that other people here have been through it, made it easier for me to follow in their footsteps also, so to speak, follow in their footsteps.
I can tell I'm smiling right now. It's I just sit and listen to this, and I'm like, that's what Racing for Recovery does. So when you said I'm accomplished when you first started this today, and I'm like, that was awesome to say. What has it been like working here with just building that self-esteem? What's it like to be a part of this? That knowing you have a life here now, you're not building caskets or coffins anymore.
For sure.
You have a career, a purpose. What's it like to be a part of the staff at Racing for Recovery?
I love this. When you say that when you pursue your passion, it's not and it becomes a career, it's not a job. I don't see this as a job. I don't call this place work. And now I'm on the complete other side. I'm not building caskets for people, dead bodies to go in. Now I'm helping people live, see that you have the opportunity to live again. So it's total opposite, what I was doing before. And I obviously didn't have this in mind as a career. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to help people. And I've always taken interest in how the mind works and why people do what they do and how they function. So it was kind of hand in hand. And then seeing where I came, how far I came, and how it's helped me, it was why not do this? Why not help other people do, I want people to have what I have. I want people to feel what I feel, So if I can help somebody do that, I'm all for it,
Talk about the process of, and I love this word, endure. You had to endure a lot of hardships and struggles getting here. And it's the same thing Eric did and Dustin did, I'm ready to go. When can I start? Not yet. And then dealing with that. Talk about how that process of when you thought you were ready, but it didn't happen when you were ready. What was that like?
I was not happy. It was giving me, showing me you had a sucker and then taking it away, not yet, not yet. You can't have it yet, but it's here. It was kind of a little bit of a tease, but, and I had moments where I was, I was being impatient is what it was. So I definitely had to, it was a learning process and patience for me, inevitably, I knew I had to sit down and it wasn't my time yet. And so for me, it was now what can I do in this time, of waiting and waiting for this moment to happen. How can I make the best of my time? What can I do to improve who I am for when that opportunity finally arrives, makes me a better person and makes me more qualified for that job? So I volunteered my time in any way that I could here, facilitating meetings, which I had been doing for a while anyways, but more like really diving into that, putting more into that, and being a lot more involved, with anything and everything that's going on around here. So it was trying to volunteer who I was in any way, shape, or form that I could in that time frame. I don't it still was kind of like, when am I going to start? When can I do this? You know what I mean? Like, I still had it in, but I was able to still be a part of. So it wasn't like I was doing my own thing outside of here and wasn't able to be a part. I still was able to be in this, fully submerged.
So I want to go back to something we were talking about before, the money factor.
Yes.
Right? So all this time, how did having some money and the lack of money, did that really change anything that has resulted in where you are today?
No.
Not
Good
a bit.
Answer.
Not a bit. Has nothing to do with it.
It has nothing to do with it. I'm glad that you said that, because when I'm hearing now people, I want to go to work, I need money, I need to do that. I'm like, that I've spent 8 months of my time not having a job or having money, and I still got through it. There were still other opportunities in order to make things happen, or there's still ways around being able to live and be here and navigate through your recovery without having a job.
And I know I need to say this, because there's going to be somebody watching this right now that unfortunately will say, well, Racing for Recovery is telling people not to work. It's not what we're saying.
It's not what I'm saying.
No.
It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying take your time.
Correct.
And make sure that you're ready to do that. Yeah. That's all. And maybe it's less time for other people, or it's more time for other people, because that's different. All individualized for sure.
Yeah. If work was the answer to this, people that had jobs prior to coming here, they would have cured their addiction with it.
It's not. I didn't work because you told me not to. I did it because I knew what I needed to do, and I was also doing schoolwork. I was going to school, and I was doing other things like that. So it wasn't that I wasn't doing anything. I was educating myself so I could be better at what I get to do now.
There you go. What does the future look like for you personally and here at Racing for Recovery? What do you want to do?
In my personal life, my future is having my family back as a whole. For sure. That is a huge goal of mine. I would love to be able to have, I will. I don't not be able. I know in one day I will have all 4 of my children under the same roof again, even though a couple of them are adults now. To me, that doesn't matter. They're still my kids. And as far as here, I just want to keep moving up. I want to keep furthering my education and being able to help people in bigger, broader aspects. I would like to be able to be a therapist and run groups and help people to the best I can, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do you want to cover anything else that we didn't cover?
I don't think so.
You ran it.
I feel like we've covered everything.
Is there, and I ask this every time to somebody, is there anything you want to ask me that we've never talked about? From counseling or since we've been sitting here, any questions that have gone through your mind that you want to ask?
On a lighter side,
yeah.
How was it sitting on that side and listening to me blubber over here all the time?
Good question. And there's some humor in it now.
Yes, there is now.
But there's also a lot, and this goes back to that question I asked you earlier about what's it like now when you're taking care of yourself to be able to turn empathetically
yes.
and look at others. That's what I was doing for you. It's like I'm doing the same thing then for you that you are now fortunate to do for others. You listen with empathy. When you're able to give education or experiences, you do. When you don't, you find somebody that can, and you're just there to do what you're privileged to do. Was it difficult at times for me listening to some of the stuff you're going through? Yeah, it's gut wrenching, but I always knew you could get to where you are, and I'm proud of you for doing that. I still, Jess, and I've said it to you a million times, that day that you came up to me and talked to me on the Friday morning, which we're recording this on a Friday, and you just asked me some questions during that breakfast. I remember telling you, this day is the one that's going to change your life. And I knew you couldn't really understand that, but you just followed it, and now I know you do understand it. Yeah. And I'm proud of you. I'm thankful that you made it. I'm grateful you chose us to help you. I'm honored that you're doing what you're doing here. I can't think of any other good words to say. Those are the only smart ones I know.
That's enough. You're making me uncomfortable now.
But you've earned it. And it goes back to what you said over here at the beginning of the thing. You have earned that seat, right?
Absolutely. I definitely worked hard to be sitting here.
Yeah, you did.
Blood, sweat, and tears definitely came into this right here today.
So, Miss Stevenson, I appreciate you coming on today. This is awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody. Watch Jessica's full episode again. Share it, please. It'll help a lot of people. And until next time, check out more episodes of Ignite Euphoria on the Racing for Recovery YouTube page. We'll see you soon. Bye.